which came in after we stapled this together. So I believe everyone has this. And we'll have copies on the counter tomorrow. What's going on with it? This was also written up through our attorney.
I'll make a motion.
And the motion is to accept the ordinance letter.
Yes, at this time, I think we should accept the ordinance letter.
I'll second that. Okay, discussion? Eric?
Did you want to go first? Yeah.
Well, I'd like to hear, first of all, I'd like to hear whose idea this is and what reasons they have for doing this. I mean, it seems completely counterintuitive, counterproductive. When I say counterintuitive and counterproductive, I just mean that, 4 trustees voted to opt into the Marijuana Act of 2016, known as the MMFLA. I told you all then that what this was going to lead to, that this was ultimately going to be rec. Other people may not have had that, been privy to that information at the time, but I was, and I shared that information with this board. The vote did come down November 6th, 2018, and the voters approved it. So I guess I'd like to hear why we're doing this.
Oh, just one more.
John, do you want to explain why we're doing
No,
it?
I don't want to explain. I just had some more input, but go ahead if you're ready to.
I'll explain why we're doing this, is until we can get an ordinance ready to take place with the recreational marijuana. I think we're doing our due diligence to put this off until we research and make sure we do this right. I don't believe it's going to take all that long to do it. I think most people will agree that it can go in the same building as the medical marijuana, and I believe that's where it's going to go. And I'm not no way against it. I'm more for it than I am against it, that we do it the right way and get an ordinance that helps pertain towards it.
Well, Mr. Chairman, I would think that...
It's not a debate, Eric. Someone else's turn.
Oh.
John?
Well, what I was going to say regarding that is that I read through the recommendation or the Flint model that they used, and I liked it. It either opted in or opted out, but left it open and it actually listed right in the document while we do the research. And we're not going to take any action, but we are not closing the door either. And I like that model better. And I think that we should have presented both models here as opposed to just one model. So that's all.
Stan?
Yes, I personally feel that there's, the residents of the township have really no voice in this at this time. And if we opt out at this time, it's very possible I'd like to see it put on the ballot. And I'd like to see what the majority of the township residents feel about that. Because I don't believe that we're hearing anything one way or the other. The supporters, of course, it's an economic opportunity, but at the same time, I don't know what the other residents, how they feel about it. And I think it should be a vote of the public. That's my position.
Thank you, Stan. Rachel, did you have anything?
Until he gets done with the bingo again.
Joe?
I agree with John. I would like to see both options. I understand we don't have anything in place, and I understand we do need something in place. However, I've been around long enough to know that once you get something, once you get something like this, it never changes. It just stays.
Well, basically, the employer assured us, even with this opt-out, as of this day, that we can opt in at any time that we make an ordinance pertaining to the recreational marijuana, just as if we did the medical marijuana. I believe we all need a little more education on it, and we can come up with a good ordinance to help with this. Did you have anything, Nicole?
No, I agree. We put ordinances in place, so we have something to resort to and follow, and it's not a no, so, I think we're doing the right thing.
It isn't now.
I mean, as far as, I know, but I mean, we're not saying no, never. We're saying until we can research it, so it's not a definite no. I mean, it's.
Shelley just got done saying no to try on these things.
Until we do an ordinance, we're not making a motion
Yeah.
to look at building an ordinance for this. I mean, you're asking us to vote on this right now, and I have nothing.
Can't hear the discussion going on.
You need to talk into the mic.
Rachel talking
I'm
to
sorry,
me.
guys. I just, I'm not comfortable with voting with this and the way that it reads. I feel like it's a dead end for us. And I don't see why we're not trying to move forward and make more of a motion of trying to put an ordinance together or something that was looking out to our future.
There is a time restraint. They will be able to apply for licenses if they already have a building in place. Well, by November 1st, we have to either have opt out or do nothing and let it move forward on its own. Joe?
See, this is where I have a problem. I agree with John. There should have been something in here that says at this present time, we are opting out until what's it called, Larry? It's not medical marijuana, what is it? Recreational marijuana. You know, regardless of what my personal views are on it, your personal views, whatever, the state of Michigan voted on it. So enough people in the state of Michigan felt strongly about recreational marijuana that they voted yes in the past. And I understand we don't have to allow it in our township, but I think we should leave ourselves open to that possibility, just like we did the medical marijuana, you know. And this, it says an ordinance to prohibit marijuana establishments from operating or becoming established in the township. And I mean, if there was just a phrase in there that says, at this time, an ordinance to prohibit until, you know, ordinance can be developed or a decision can be made permanently not to do it. I just think, I agree with John. I would have liked to have had both options available to me.
I would like to have the letter last week, but that isn't how it came about. I mean,
It's legal in Michigan, just make it legal.
May I ask what would happen if we do not approve this ordinance?
We can get
They're
sued.
gonna go bankrupt.
We can get sued.
Again?
If we do not approve it, we would get sued?
if we do, he's saying if we do
May I-
approve this one.
May I present reasons why we should vote for this?
Why we shouldn't vote?
Right, I'd like to, you know, I just asked, you know, your reasons, you know, to vote no on it. I think you've all spoken. Whenever you're ready to give me the, you know, the floor.
Or no,
Chairman.
I think you're, what do you have to say?
Mr. Chairman, if I may.
Eric?
To start with, you know, it just seems like there's this misunderstanding that there's not an entire 12-page, you know, document that the voters voted on November 6th. It depicts everything you can and can't do, okay? Like everything from, you know, zoning to promulgating of rules to discussing about whether, you know, it has an effect on kids or what, you know, kids cannot, you know, do this as a 21 and older thing. Under page 9 of the law, under section 11D, no marijuana establishment may refuse representatives of the department for the right during the hours of operation to inspect the licensed premises, to audit the books and records of the marijuana establishment. E, directly underneath of that, no marijuana establishment shall allow a person under 21 years of age to volunteer or work for the marijuana establishment. I think that kind of covers it out, besides the whole 21 and older, you know, thing like everything like alcohol, it's treated like alcohol. Furthermore, when I said we could potentially get sued, maybe our attorney knows of the marijuana law conference that just happened. I'll give you the exact date. This was last week. Yeah, this was last Thursday. And the Director Andrew Brisboe from LARA, Dana Nessel, Michigan State Attorney General, Bridget McCormick, Michigan Supreme Court, Lansing. These three people spoke at this conference. They stated that any municipality that opts out after opting into medical can be sued. And I just want to make that very clear to your decision making tonight. I mean, if you'd have given me a little bit more time, I could have prepared a little bit more, but I'll give you a couple more things. The unlicensed medical marijuana shops can't be shut down ruling as of 6 months ago. I'm just going to read you just a tidbit of the judge's decision. The court concludes that the state's actions offended due process for the reasons that they were arbitrary and capricious. They continue to be arbitrary and capricious that because the state's actions infringed on the pertinent plaintiff's property's interests without affording the plaintiff's procedural due process. On the outset, the court notes that LARA's entire method of handling the license applications has been, quote, apt to sudden change, comma, freakish, comma, or whimsical. I'll further add that the Michigan Municipals League and the Michigan Townships Association, on the front of their headline, the very top, right here, it says, if a municipality intends to allow recreational marijuana business, then it does not need to take any action. Further down the line, in the same paragraph, it says, an an opt-in ordinance is not necessary or required. I would like to add one more thing. There's been a question that we did not vote on this, that Stan mentioned he would like the residents of Thetford Township to speak on the matter. I totally understand that. But on February 6th, 2018, the residents of Thetford Township did speak on this, and I will quote, Thetford Township, Precinct 1, 405 yes to 309 no. Thetford Township Precinct 2, 271 votes yes to 164 no. Thetford Township Precinct 3, 443 votes yes to 327 votes no. Thetford Township Precinct 4, 526 yes votes to 375 no votes, coming to a total of 59.2% voted yes. That's higher than the state's average at 57%. I think at this point, folks, I think I've made my point very clear. Thank you.
So, can I ask you a question?
Yes.
Do you have anything to gain from this personally before you make a decision to vote?
Do I have anything to gain? Not at all. That's time. No.
Okay.
I have nothing to gain.
Okay. I'm gonna put that in minutes. I don't think we know enough of what happens if it does pass, as well as what happens if it doesn't pass.
What's going to happen, I think, if it does pass, is the Planning Commission is going to receive these applicants that are going to say, yes, we've already applied for the MMFLA license. Yes, we want to sell rec now. I mean, as far as this board's concerned, we opted in for, medical. I don't see how allowing all, and especially since you all invited them here for the money, and maybe you're concerned about the money or where that's going. I'll give you the exact where it says in the law exactly where each penny of this money is going to. Here, on page. Well, let me just read this for you real quick here. The Treasury Department will be making this. One second, please. Pardon me.
our side. So being we have an ordinance for the medical marijuana, it covers the recreational.
I found what I was
Is that what
looking
you?
for. I found what I was looking for. May I read this, please?
But
Okay.
before you do, Eric,
You're
just
good.
answer his question.
Good.
Because we have an ordinance for medical marijuana, that covers the recreational, is that what you're telling me?
According to the MTA, according to the Michigan Municipal League, according to everything that I've read and understand, it does not. And let me just say this, that the Treasury Department has already decided, this is in the law that we voted for, 15% of the monies go to the municipalities in which a marijuana retail store is located. 15% continues to goes to the county, and 35% goes to school aid fund to be used for K through 12 education, 35% to the Michigan Transportation Fund to be used to repair and maintenance of roads and bridges. This is all in the language, all in the voter referendum that we voted for in November. It was all there in black and white. When we circulated the petitions, each letter of this language was in the petition. It was, we unfolded it, it was this long. We've been through this, the people have spoken on it.
My opinion is, if we don't have an ordinance for recreational, we do not get to choose whether they get to be there or not.
Sure you do. It says right in the language that you have to decide whether you grant them permission to operate. We still have to grant them permission, and the state will not issue them a license unless they get approval from us. It's pretty cut and dry.
Right.
Chris, do you have much of an opinion on this?
Well, it's just, honestly, it's how we said, as far as, there's two separate laws right now. There's one for recreational and there's one for medical. Currently, there is an ordinance that you guys have that allows for medical, allows for provisioning centers and all the like. Currently, the MMFLA is the only thing that's operating for grows, for provisioning centers, everything like that. There's not currently one that says the medical license pertains to recreational. And just as he said, municipalities have to make a choice of opting into the recreational. You guys have not made that decision. If there's no decision that's made, then it's going to go forward. This would be a decision to opt out. If you guys would like to change the language inside of the motion, that's 100% fine. There's no, nothing saying you can't change that language.
Well, and at any time we will be able to opt in if we choose to opt out right now.
Correct.
Why would you opt out when the businesses will all go somewhere else?
Sued some more. Just call the question and vote it
Out of
down.
order.
If I may, Mr.
Yes,
Chairman,
you are.
I'd like to add one more thing.
That's two for Eugene. Was that Eric?
I'd like to add just one more thing. A voter referendum is not a piece of legislation. A voter referendum is upheld in a court of law higher than a piece of legislation. It is considered the people's law. This was challenged back in 2012, and the Michigan State Supreme Court ruled at a 7-0 ruling that the voters were not tricked, that voter referendums should be liberally interpreted to effectuate their purpose. I'm using the exact court language there, but furthermore, the Twp decision of February 6th to February 12th, February 6th, 2014, the Michigan State Supreme Court ruled in a ruling of 7-0 that the local municipalities cannot override the act. In this particular situation, I most definitely give extreme warning to everyone on this board that has been a state Supreme Court ruling since 2014. To challenge that at this point of the game would be just foolish, because it would be an opportunity for another attorney or you know, someone to make a name for themselves, to sue us, because taking us to the Supreme Court would only result in one answer. I mean, they've already made a ruling on ballot initiatives that would, I'm sorry, you just can't override it.
Why would you need an ordinance for recreational different than medical? Why is that?
Good question.
Why is that?
Good question.
Why is it recommended?
What do you mean, why is it recommended?
Why is it
Recommended by who?
It's recommended by the attorney, by the MTA.
No. I had it right here, I read it to you right here.
Mr. Chair, if I may.
That it does not need to take any action. No ordinances are not necessarily required.
Correct, but it still gives the power to the municipality to make that decision. So it's up to the board to make that decision.
They have that decision right now. They could vote to opt in this ordinance right now, even though I think you'd be foolish to do that because you haven't had 2 public hearings and we've only received this ordinance like 5 minutes before the meeting.
This is a police power ordinance, it's not a zoning ordinance.
Okay, so then it could be legally adopted tonight, if the board so choose. Okay, so be it. They could do that tonight. However, you know, I would just highly recommend that you don't.
It's the board's decision,
Well,
it's not the attorney's decision.
Right.
Let me just throw one more in here. You know, we actually received this an hour before the meeting. So quite frankly, even taking any kind of vote tonight would be kind of ridiculous. We would never present anything and expect someone to digest it an hour before the meeting and then make a vote. So if you are considering it, I would highly recommend tabling it. I mean, if you're.
November
But this
1st
has
is
to be
the deadline.
submitted November
This
1st.
has to be submitted tomorrow, if you're gonna do it. If it isn't done,
It doesn't
this
have
is
to.
the Wild West.
Okay.
It isn't the Wild West when it comes to its own
I can take it.
do's and don'ts.
Nope, I agree. So, but it hasn't, well, so far, you're right, we don't have a motion or support, so we're at this point. Okay. All right. So there's nothing there, really.
No one wants to make a motion?
I make a motion
Please stand.
to put this ordinance on, vote on this ordinance.
To opt out, or what is the motion?
To opt out, that's what this ordinance is.
I'm sorry, but Nicole already made a motion and it was supported. That's what you were discussing.
I thought we did it before we discussed it. I thought we did before we discussed it.
No,
I
there was
just-
no motion.
I just think there's a lot of things at play here, and I caution.
Is there support?
So what's the motion?
There wasn't one written down, so I don't believe we made one. No.
Nicole made a motion to follow what the lawyer had recommended. It was supported.
No, that was the last item on the
That
agenda.
was the last
Rich.
item, it wasn't this one.
Thanks.
Oh, yeah, that was the closed.
That was the closed session.
What motion was it you wanted to make, Stan?
Yes, it
That
was.
we opt out on this ordinance. It's an opt out.
For recreational marijuana.
Mr. Chairman, Stan, is your motion to adopt this what the attorney wrote, is that correct? I just
Yeah.
want to make sure that
Yeah.
you're not changing it, just what's here.
And this pertains to recreational, Chris,
If
it
you're gonna
doesn't
change it,
say
you're gonna have the
recreational
board.
on it.
You're gonna have to
Right.
put that on you're gonna have to ask the board whether they want.
Oh, okay. I just wondered if this is what you were recommending.
We have an ordinance for medical marijuana, this would pertain to recreational.
Yes. I think John's question was.
I don't know why it doesn't say it, Shelley. I didn't write it.
Oh, I meant, just as it's written, you're recommending as it's written. Okay.
Just as a side point, we have not denied a single application that's came to us.
Correct.
I mean, and there's all kinds of, I mean, we have all kinds of facilities here. We have all kinds of,
We don't have recreational facilities.
you're right, we don't, but the voters voted November 6th.
Yeah.
And I think, I'm personally of the opinion that to go against the voters.
I don't know why we're having a
Actually, the
conversation.
discussion should happen after
After the second.
that second. And we've been doing it like back backwards.
Correct.
We're gonna do a second article. No one wants to second it? I'll second it, just so we can take a vote on
Okay, well, we can have a discussion also.
it. Okay?
We kind of have already had the
Beat the dead
discussion.
horse.
But at the same time, you know, I guess the problem is that there's no actual date of, or the process of opting in. I think that was one of John's problems. And if the board doesn't feel that this ordinance covers all their worries, I'm willing to take my support of this ordinance out. Otherwise, repeal it and have a discussion on whether you want to change it or not. So that's.
Shelley?
Okay, simple as I can. I would like it to refer to recreational marijuana specifically. I would like it to contain something that says, because we received this today, we have to do something by November 1st, that we will temporarily opt out until such a time that an ordinance can be prepared, presented to this board to recommend opting in, whether it passes or not. I can't say, but I want that option in here.
Well, that could be put into the motion then, Shelley.
I have to rescind my motion first.
Right, there you go.
With a time, not 6 years, not 12 years, not 14 years, 90 days.
May I also point out that kicking the can down the road is not a legal protection. Just like voting to put this off or postpone this, it's not legal protection. I mean, I'm not an attorney, but I know it.
Did you want to rescind your motion?
What are you saying, Stan? Can't hear you.
Yeah. Yeah, I'd like to amend the motion I made. So I will let Shelley repeat what she has said, because I totally agree with this. So,
Okay, let's read it for
For
everyone.
recreational,
An ordinance to prohibit recreational marijuana establishments from operating or becoming established in the township for a period of 60 days until a complete recreational marijuana ordinance can be presented and voted on by this board, and to prescribe the penalties and violations thereof. I'm not an attorney, you'll have to clean that up down there, Chris. And when it says no marijuana establishments, it's no recreational marijuana establishments, because we do already allow medical marijuana establishments. So within 60 days, this board has to have an ordinance that it can vote on, whether it goes up or down, for recreational marijuana. But I understand the urgency of having something in place by November 1st, because we do want to have some rules and regulations, like we do with the medical marijuana. We just don't have time to do it. However, we don't want to limit ourselves to getting stuck into this, and that's my opinion.
I got it, but she said 90 days the first time, and she said 60 days the second time.
Well, I mean, what do you guys think?
Let me ask
90,
you, how
60
long
days,
is it
how
gonna
long would it
take to
take?
get it
60? All right, I'll amend my motion for 60 days.
60 gives you through
that would add it to Stan's motion,
Support.
he was in his, amending his, and I'll also amend mine to fit that.
And I don't know, what's down there, they're legal, together.
No, just that somebody needs to support.
I supported it
So,
with the changes that was read.
Motion is
motion as amended.
Motion as amended. John?
So you or Chris or whoever's involved in this, so can we get this done and have something to present for us by that time frame?
I believe so, if we have to have 5 special meetings.
Okay, yeah, whatever it
I'll
takes.
take care of it, believe me.
That's all I wonder, okay, that's all I'm asking.
I was gonna suggest one tomorrow if you guys was gonna go with it. We have to do something tomorrow.
All right.
Are you ready for a roll call vote?
I thought we were gonna have discussion. Yeah,
Oh, no, we're in discussion right now.
Yeah, we're discussing right now.
Okay, what's up?
Again, I'll reiterate my position on this. My position on this stands that you didn't just opt in to medical marijuana a year ago and invite a bunch of business entrepreneurs to come to this township and purchase properties, expensive properties, and then invest hundreds of thousands, if not upwards of millions of dollars investment in this entire thing, just so that you could say, oh, you're only gonna have, well, you got my sheet right there, less than 300,000 customers in the whole state of Michigan, because that's how many medical patients there are. So these people came here to apply for licenses, spend all this money, assume that, yeah, we're going forward with this, and we're gonna approve, yeah, we approve medical, sure, we're gonna approve rec, and they're all moving forward with this. They spend all this money, and at the last minute, you're gonna chop them off at the knees and say, no, you can't.
We're moving forward also.
Yeah, but you're
60
delaying.
days.
It's 60 days.
They can't get a license for 90.
They can still apply to the state.
Sure they can.
And this, and what do you think the state's gonna do?
This is not a debate.
Yes, it is a debate, Mr. Chairman. It is a debate. If you don't like to argue, then you need to quit doing your job.
Well, I think maybe you should too. Eric.
Well, maybe I'll take your position next time.
Well, let's go for it.
Okay. Well, anyway, but my point is this, Mr. Chairman, is that these people spent all this money and did all this, and then you're gonna say, hey, 60 days, 90 days? You don't think there's gonna be a lawsuit on that? You don't think there's gonna be blowback on that? You don't think that the state of Michigan is gonna put these things in order? Of course.
Mr. Chair, if I may, just to clear it up, there's not been anything said by the board that would promise anybody a guaranteed vote on recreational. I think what was said here today is that they'd like to put a moratorium on it for 60 days, and that's completely reasonable. As true as in life, nobody can stop a lawsuit. So to say that this is going to invite lawsuits and things like that, that's fine. But a promise to have medical does not mean a promise to have recreational.
I concur with you.
So I just, as a point of order, I don't think that this is necessarily a back and forth or an argument. I think it's a differencing of opinions.
Of course.
Chairman, I got one.
Yeah?
So, just on this, I guess I just need to be clear how it's gonna read. I don't care about all other crap. The stuff with the front line here that says, how is that gonna read? The initial line, right now it says prohibits marijuana. So, is that gonna still read like that? How's this gonna read?
No recreational marijuana establishments.
And then the rest of the provisions will be down below, is that what you're suggesting?
Right.
Suggesting?
Yep. Well, it was made in the motion.
In that law. So immediately, effective immediately, before the 60 days, they can file a petition, anyone in this township can file a petition to have our decision reversed. Secondly, I'm just not sure what you're all concerned about. I mean, the Planning Commission has not denied a single applicant so far. And you've approved this, to be here for medical. I just don't see you putting a bottleneck choke point on this. I see it nothing more than just a collusionary tactic by any form of government, just a stall tactic. It's just kicking the can down the road so that you can come up with some arbitrary and capricious rules and regulations that will probably be challenged and fought anyway. But it's up to you.
Excuse me, if we were not to accept this tonight, and, sorry, Chris, if we did not accept this, what would happen tomorrow?
What would
Or
happen?
the first?
On the first, it would be considered opting in.
So we would have already opted in.
Correct.
At that point.
And
then
then
we
if
could-
somebody, well, then that's the first date that businesses can apply for licenses under recreational marijuana. So they could be denied. It would be up to the board. It would just be an opt-in from that date, and it would signal to businesses that they can start applying for licenses locally. So this would opt in, whether this is voted on or not, it would just put something on the books allowing somebody to opt in, or allowing somebody to apply for that license, or to recognize that they haven't passed recreational marijuana, so there is no reason to apply for a recreational license.
if we do nothing, and we automatically opt in, can we opt out?
Yes, but again, I think if a point is made to, you would have businesses confused on what they can and cannot do and what they're actually applying for. What's the point of applying for a license if there's nothing in place and potentially it would be denied?
So if we don't vote on this at all, if we automatically opt in, but then that would be possible to opt out at a later date, and basically anybody that has invested in, probably, in my opinion, would rather wait 60 days to make sure that they got the opt-in vote, because at that time, can you jump back and forth and you opt in, and you opt out first, and then automatically.
I think, one, I'm not going to speculate on what somebody will or will not do, but generally it's a better idea to have businesses understand what they're applying for and if that's a possibility. So if you're saying that you're going to wait 60 days to put an ordinance in place, if I'm a business owner and I'm not speculating, I'm saying what I would do, I would probably wait 60 days before I submit for a recreational license under the ordinance. However, if there's nothing in place, and after hearing these discussions and what's occurred, I would still probably wait. If you were, like what you just said, the idea of opting in and opting out, I don't think is a good policy. I think...
I have a very small question, which is, would you be able to regulate recreational without an ordinance?
It would be under the state law as it is in place.
Everything you just read.
Right.
The state's gonna make all those recommendations.
The state's already got it in the law.
Oh.
It's already got in the
So
law.
if we don't do this, if we don't agree on this and throw it out, the state's laws are already into effect on the first. So when they apply, the facilities still have to go with the state laws.
That's true, but we can't, I'm sorry, can we, Gary?
It goes like other ordinances, John, you wouldn't collect any fines or fees or anything like that. That's why you pertain to your own ordinances for different
So,
regulations.
but our ordinances could not supersede the state's.
Right, exactly, no.
They
no
could be
township
more
laws can.
restrictive, but they cannot be less restrictive, correct?
Right.
Correct.
So the only real advantage to this is, we could put some restrictions in if we wish to.
Right.
Yeah.
And set fines, costs,
Okay.
and
Mainly,
That's the only plus.
mainly zoning in areas.
That,
we
I have no
with the
problem
medical.
with them establishing in the area, I have no problem with that. I do like being able to put some restrictions. I don't want anything that's super cumbersome, but there is probably things that we might want to do. So from that standpoint,
Let me just add one more on there. Currently, the way the law is right now, every resident, every household of this community has the right to grow their medical plants and their recreational plants. They can do that already, okay? And what that, let me just give you some numbers to kind of crunch around in your head. That means a typical resident, or a husband and wife scenario of a typical resident. Husband has a full stack of medical marijuana cards, he can grow up to 72 plants. A wife scenario, she could have a full stack of cards, she could grow her 72. That means that the couple together can legally grow 144 plants on their property, and this township or any municipality cannot stop them, prevent them, restrict them in any way, shape, or form. They can also grow their 12 additional recreational plants, and we cannot stop them or prevent them. That means that each resident is able to grow up to 150 plants at their place. The rec law only allows for the 150 to 200 plant grow license. You're talking, it's a fraction of what it was with the MMFLA. So, and as far as provisioning centers, grow facilities, and all those kind of things, the properties that we have already been designated and bought up, and they're, you know, what is there to say? I don't know what, I mean, this law came with its own bells and whistles, its own restrictions, what you can and cannot do. I don't know what else to say, folks. It's pretty cut and dry.
Okay. motion was to opt out.
Oh, I-
60-day memorandum for completing ordinance.
And can I ask just one question, one more? I mean, did anybody think that like what you're saying with this vote, it's like you're saying, yes, I support illegalization and black market and unregulated cannabis sales. I mean, that's what you're saying by this vote. That's about the most nonsensical vote I think I've ever heard this township decide to take.
Take a call, a question.
Roll call vote.
Stan,
Repeat that. Repeat ordinance. Okay.
what do you want me to repeat?
How it changes,
An ordinance to prohibit recreational marijuana establishments from operating or becoming established in the township and to prescribe penalties for violations thereof. No rec marijuana establishments as defined by the Michigan Regulation and Taxation of Marijuana Act under the law 1 of 2018 permitted within the boundaries of the township. And it has the violation penalties. This is not a permanent opt-out. This is to get it 60 days.
It did include 60 days in there,
Right.
correct?
Right.
And 60 days to provide a
Completion.
completion of an ordinance.
So the yes vote is opting out, right? For the
Correct.
60 days.
Correct.
Okay, yes is the question.
Rachel?
No.
Shelley?
Yes.
Eric?
No.
John?
Yes.
Nicole? Yes. Gary?
Yes. G, recommendations for planning board approved. Total of 9013 North Saginaw Street, Suite 4, Mount Morris, processor and provisioning center, page 16. We'll do these separately.
Mr. Chairman, if I may make the motion. And do we want to hear the motion first or hear a discussion about it first?
No, motion in a second before discussion.
Okay. Then we will start with the first one, a motion to approve Verde Buena, 9030 North Saginaw, Suite number 4, Mount Morris, site plan review for provisioning center at the same address. That's my motion.
And I'll second that.
As a planning commission member, it's my duty to inform the board of anything that I think it might be of interest to your voting. And so on this first one, it was noted at the planning commission, and I'll just read directly out of the minutes of the planning commission. Stated that it was noticed that the zoning was RU2 and not commercial. Property is classified as commercial, but not zoned. He also stated that he did not see a problem with the property being rezoned as it is in a commercial area. But they will have to go to the planning commission for a rezone request, which then goes to the township board for their first reading of the ordinance and then for a final reading at the next meeting. So I just want everyone to be aware that the decision that we're making based on that particular piece of property, 9030 North Saginaw, Suite number 4, is based on the fact that it was RU2 and not commercial. So we have to do something there.
The assessor is working on the owners of the properties to work with them to get it zoned commercial.
Okay.
It should have been done previously when planning boards previously had approved the building of these commercial buildings.
Right.
They should have made sure it was a commercial zone. We will get it zoned commercial.
Right.
It will not change their taxes Is
Yeah.
it already zoned?
If anyone has any questions, I'd be happy to answer, just so that you're aware, that's what it was, but currently it has, a multi-office use, visually, aesthetically from the road, okay? This is not what it says in our books, but because we've obviously got this issue before us, I believe that we can make the recommendation for the approval of the site plan review for the provisioning center. I believe that we can make that recommendation before this is converted, I think, for the purposes of these folks being able to apply for their license and so forth. I think it's pretty clear that we can address the zoning issue at a later time for us.
They have already received licenses in that area.
Right.
So-
And the supervisor's already agreed that we're gonna work on getting them changed, so it's kind of a moot point, because we're gonna get it done.
Right.
Okay. Before we go into the discussion of the next one, I think we should probably take a vote on that.
We need to do a vote on that one.
Eric,
Yes.
John?
Yes.
Yes. Gary?
Yes.
Oops, sorry, Stan?
You have to run that by me again. What are we voting on?
It's approval of the recommendation from the planning board on 9030 North Saginaw, Suite 4, for provision.
I got that part. The part I don't understand, but they will have to go.
Chair, if I may.
Chris?
You can approve them subject to the rezoning. So you can give the approval, then they will go through the rezoning process. That way it doesn't hold them up and they have to come back.
Right.
So subject to they're getting a commercial rezoning, that they're approved by the township board.
Yes.
Rachel?
Yes.
Shelley?
Now, are we doing this subject to the rezoning?
To rezoning, yes.
The
Did we?
motion was amended to.
You would have to
Oh,
amend.
yes, I'll,
You'd have
yes,
to
I will
include that,
amend my motion then to include,
subject to the reason.
subject to the rezoning of the RU2 to commercial.
Okay, then I'll vote yes.
Shelley says yes. Everyone? Okay, recommendation for 10040 North Door Highway, Mount Morris, Processing and Provisioning Center. I believe, was it a growth facility also?
Yes.
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 There was 3. Right, okay. If for somehow it didn't show up on our minutes here, or our agenda, growth facility.
So that's your recommendation for that one?
Yes.
I'll make the motion that we approve the recommendation from the planning commission.
I'll support it.
And that one's also subject, I believe it was RU2, or was it already commercial? It's already commercial, right?
No.
Yes, he already has the right zone, so that one doesn't pertain to
Wait, we're still on the first one.
No, we passed
that.
it.
No, we're on the second
We
one.
didn't take a roll? We didn't
Yeah.
Oh, okay, all right.
Yeah.
Okay, we're on the second one now.
Yep.
Okay, all
And it's
right. Let
already
me,
the right zoning for that area.
okay, let me, again, as my duty as the representation of the planning commission, it's my duty to bring to your attention anything of note. I'm gonna read from the minutes of the planning commission for the second Cloud Manufacturing LLC, Lewis Meeks, 10040 North Door Highway, Mount Morris, site plan review for a grower, processor, and provisioning center at the same address. Under that, it was mentioned the condition that the property is in at this time with a lot, with quote, with a lot of quote, junk in the yard. Mr. Meeks stated that he will have $2 million invested in this property and will make sure that it gets cleaned and the building will be remodeled. However, I do want to just simply point out, because I think it's important to make a note to this board, if we're to be consistent with our dealings and our proceedings, I want to make it clear to you that in the case of the Stanslows, we required them to clean up the lot before we would allow them to ask for licensure, okay? Now, I want to make sure that we're not stubbing our toes here like we usually do, because I want to be consistent, especially because we're involved in a lawsuit right now, currently discussing that. So what I would just offer to this board is, you know, it's at your pleasure. I mean, you know, I'm sure that this individual is here. I'm sure he would gladly address the board if he wanted him to. He did say that he was intending to clean up the property, but if that may need to be included in the motion, maybe pending that he clean up the property, it's at this board's, you know, pleasure that you guys have the opportunity to put restrictions at this moment if you so choose. But I would recommend we stay consistent.
I believe Mr. Meeks has stated on the record that he is not going to make a final payment on the property until it is cleaned up. Is that true, Mr. Meeks?
That's correct.
So I believe he's going to have it cleaned up before he will ever open his business. And I guess we won't give him the occupancy until it is.
Okay.
I think he'll agree to that, and I think we can move forward with confidence with Mr. Meeks.
Okay. I have great confidence in him too, and I just want to make sure that everyone understands that if we're going to be consistent with all residents and all businesses, especially in that district, then we probably should be. And I know for a fact that the Stanslows were required to clean up the lot. So I'm just throwing that out there.
We still have a work in progress there, so. Thank you, Mr. Meeks. We'll do a roll call vote.
All right.
What do we vote on?
Do we have a motion on that?
Yep, motion in a second. Yep.
So we're gonna vote that,
10040 North Shore Highway, a recommendation from the planning board for a provisioning center, processor, and a grow facility.
Now,
This is that the old calendar sales.
you discussed the cleanup.
Yes.
Okay, was that in this motion that it has to be cleaned up prior to?
no occupancy until he cleans it up.
No occupancy until he gets it cleaned up. He won't be able to open.
Support.
I think there was one.
Was there?
It's been so long, I don't know.
Okay.
So don't fall asleep.
Dragging it.
No one's voted yet.
Oh.
Roll call vote.
Stan,
Yes.
Rachel,
Yeah.
Shelley,
Yes.
Eric,
Yes.
John.
Yes.
Cole, yes, Gary.
Yes. Okay. Under I,